We will now move on to Chapter 6, Traffic Laws. As usual, we have our knowledge objectives. By the end of Chapter 6, students will be able to identify and discuss administrative laws concerning driver behavior, describe the purpose of state-issued driver's licenses, explain vehicle ownership issues including vehicle registration and financial responsibility, describe the role that traffic rules play in maintaining a safe driving environment, explain issues related to right-of-way, explain traffic rules regarding aggressive driving, impaired driving, drowsy driving, and racing on public roadways. Then we have our attitude objectives. By the end of Chapter 6, students will accept that traffic laws are rules for behavior that enable highway users to better predict the actions of other users. Drivers have a social and moral obligation to drive in compliance with traffic regulations. It is necessary to completely stop for stop signs. Drivers must assume responsibility for yielding the right-of-way. Turning left or right on a red light increases risk and requires extra caution. And a relationship exists between convictions for moving violations and probability of collision and crash involvement. Alright, so let's get started with traffic laws. A couple questions you will be able to answer after this slide are, what are traffic laws and why do traffic laws exist? So drivers must know what is expected of them and be able to predict the behavior of other highway users. The purpose of traffic laws and rules of the road is to prevent traffic crashes and promote the orderly flow of traffic by ensuring that drivers are qualified to operate a motor vehicle on public roadways, providing rules for highway user behavior, helping highway users better predict what other highway users will do, serving as guides to law enforcement personnel and courts. The traffic control laws are based on the Uniform Vehicle Code. These include laws governing licensing, financial responsibility, vehicle ownership, rules of the road, vehicle operation, and driver condition. Then we have administrative laws. So each state has laws that enable state officials to control its highway transportation system. These laws set up procedures for driver's licensing, motor vehicle registration, financial responsibility, and vehicle equipment standards. Then we have driver's licenses. A driver's license gives an individual permission to operate a motor vehicle on public highways. Licensing provides legal identification of drivers. Licensing also provides a structure to verify each driver's knowledge of the laws that govern the use of motor vehicles on public roadways and for the overall safe operation of his or her vehicle. Also, the driver's license is granted by the state, not the city, not the federal government. It's issued by the state. Then we have your first license. People who apply for their first license must demonstrate that they understand traffic laws. They must pass a written test on the rules of the road as well as a vision test. Applicants must demonstrate a basic ability to operate a motor vehicle. Demonstrating basic ability does not guarantee that the licensed applicant is a safe driver. On average, it takes about 5 years to reach the ability of the average driver on the highway. Your driver's license can also be taken away. Since the state grants a person the license to operate a motor vehicle on public roadways, the state also can, for cause, take that license away. The courts may suspend or revoke a person's driver's license because of a traffic offense. The state can take administrative action to suspend or revoke a license. Suspension and revocation of a license. Depending upon the severity of the driving offense, a driver's license may be either suspended or revoked. A suspension is a temporary removal of a person's license for a specific period of time, generally less than 1 year, after which the license is returned. A revocation is a more serious penalty that withdraws the driving privilege completely, generally for a period of at least 1 year, after which the individual can reapply for the license. Since most people depend on their vehicles for everyday activities such as work and school, suspension or revocation of a license is a serious penalty. Being convicted of driving while a license is suspended or revoked is a serious offense, a misdemeanor that can result in a mandatory jail sentence. Then we have a point system. Most states have a point system for guidance and actions against drivers who have been convicted of traffic offenses or involved in crashes. Each conviction for a traffic violation has a point value, and the number of points on a driver's record governs the type of action to be taken. Point systems help state officials to be more consistent in penalizing drivers when necessary. We also have the National Driver Register. The United States Department of Transportation has established a system called the National Driver Register. The register is a record of chronic problem drivers reported by state licensing agencies across the country. Licensing officials may check the register when an individual applies for a new license or is suspected of having a poor driving record. For this slide, we will cover financial responsibility, but we will also cover insurance and financial responsibility in Chapter 16. So, you'll be able to answer, what is financial responsibility, why is it required for all drivers, and why is it important to safe driving? So, all drivers must show proof of financial responsibility, which is the ability to pay for any damages resulting from a collision, regardless of who is at fault. Failure to show proof may lead to the suspension of one's driver's license. Vehicle owners who fail to show proof of financial responsibility also may have their vehicle registration suspended. If a vehicle was driven without the owner's permission, so if your vehicle was stolen from your driveway and it's involved in a collision, you are not responsible and you do not have to prove financial responsibility. The law usually limits the amount to no more than $25,000 for any one collision. So you might be asking yourself, how can I show proof of financial responsibility? So there are at least 3 ways that drivers and vehicle owners can demonstrate proof of financial responsibility. Number 1, possess automobile liability insurance coverage. Number 2, deposit money in the amount required by the state. And number 3, deposit bonds or other securities like title to your property and stock certificates sufficient to meet the state's requirements. However, some states do not require insurance, so not all states require motor vehicle operators or owners to carry liability insurance. Since few people have the money or other securities available to meet the requirements for financial responsibility, most drivers carry automobile liability insurance. Then we also have proof of financial responsibility for the future. There are 2 conditions under which a driver or vehicle owner must file a proof of financial responsibility for the future, which is the proof of the ability to pay $25,000 or more, depending on the requirement of the state for a period of 3 years. That's when the driver's license has been revoked and the driver or vehicle owner has failed to provide proof of financial responsibility or pay a judgment after having been found responsible for damages in a crash. Then we have insuring high-risk drivers. Drivers who are required to show proof of financial responsibility for the future are considered poor risks by insurance companies. Insurance companies often turn down such drivers when they apply for liability insurance protection. To provide coverage for high-risk drivers, most states offer an assigned risk insurance plan. Under such plans, each insurance company doing business in a state is required to accept a share of the high-risk drivers. Due to the increased likelihood that such drivers will be involved in crashes, insurance companies tend to charge them much higher premiums and provide only the minimum coverage required by law. And we will discuss insurance a lot further in a future chapter. Now we have vehicle ownership and registration, the certificate of title. A certificate of motor vehicle title is required to demonstrate proof of ownership. The state issues a certificate of title when a motor vehicle is purchased. A title document shows the owner's name and address, the vehicle body style, the number of cylinders in your vehicle, the serial number, the vehicle identification number, also known as the VIN number, and if the owner has purchased the vehicle on a time payment plan known as a loan, and the title will indicate that there is a lien, which is a debt owed against the vehicle. Now we have vehicle registration. A motor vehicle must be re-registered periodically, typically every 1 to 4 years, with the appropriate state agency. In states with mandatory liability insurance laws, the name of the insurance company that insures the driver must be provided. At the time of registration, the owner, depending on the state, receives 1 or 2 license plates or tags and a registration card. Now we have the rules of the road. We will start with the Motor Vehicle Code. Every state has a motor vehicle code that contains a section on the rules of the road. These rules are in effect regardless of whether signs, signals, or markings are posted. Some of these laws regulate legal driving speed, lane usage, passing, and turning. Other laws address issues such as right-of-way and signaling intentions when preparing to stop or changing your direction. Still, others address driver responsibilities in a collision and issues such as aggressive driving, distractions, and driving under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. Now we have the right-of-way laws. These are designed to help drivers understand who should be granted the privilege of proceeding first when more than one vehicle approaches an intersection at about the same time. So you need to know that a driver can never take the right-of-way. It is always given by one driver to another. Drivers cannot assume that another driver will yield the right-of-way to them. A study of 40,000 drivers at intersections controlled by stop signs revealed that 2/3 of drivers failed to stop. So instead of assuming that other drivers will automatically yield the right-of-way to you, you should pay careful attention to the other driver's intentions and their actions. Exercising due caution. All drivers are required to exercise due care to avoid a collision. When two or more drivers approach a situation where someone is supposed to yield the right-of-way, all drivers should be prepared to yield. Let's cover the principles of right-of-way. Right-of-way laws are sometimes difficult to understand or apply. The purpose of right-of-way laws is to prevent conflicts resulting from one driver failing to yield to another. The right-of-way is always given. It is not something a highway user should take for granted. To be granted the right-of-way, a driver must be driving in a lawful manner. A driver cannot take the right-of-way by breaking another law. A driver has not yielded the right-of-way if he or she forces other highway users to slow down or to wait. Whoever has the last clear chance to avoid a collision has an obligation to do so. Pedestrians, right-of-way, and crosswalks. When traffic control signals are not in place or not in operation, the driver of a vehicle shall yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian crossing the roadway. Also within a crosswalk on the same side of the road, or when the pedestrian is approaching so closely from the opposite half of the roadway as to be in danger. Stopping for school buses. Generally, drivers are required to stop when they meet or pass a school bus loading or unloading children. Some states require drivers to stop for a school bus only outside a business or residential area when the red stoplights on the bus are flashing. Other states require drivers to stop for a school bus stopped on any roadway. When in doubt, slow down when you meet or pass a school bus, and stop if the school bus is loading or unloading children or if its red stoplights are flashing. Traffic control laws. Obedience to traffic control devices. All drivers must obey all traffic control devices unless otherwise directed by a police officer or other person of authority. Obedience to authorized persons directing traffic. No driver should willfully fail or refuse to comply with any lawful order or direction of any police officer, any firefighter, any flagger at a construction or maintenance site, or any uniformed adult school crossing guard invested by law with the authority to direct, control, or regulate traffic. Traffic control signals. We'll start with the green light. A green light signals to drivers that vehicular traffic may proceed straight through or turn right or left unless a sign prohibits either such turn. Vehicular traffic, including vehicles turning right or left, is required to yield the right-of-way to other vehicles and pedestrians lawfully within the intersection or an adjacent crosswalk at the time the green light is illuminated. A steady yellow light. A steady yellow light signals to drivers that movements allowed under the immediately preceding green light conditions should be safely completed and that a red light will be illuminated immediately thereafter. Pedestrians facing a steady yellow or yellow arrow signal, unless otherwise directed by a pedestrian control signal, are advised that there is insufficient time to cross the roadway before a red light is illuminated. Finally, we have the steady red light. A steady red light signals to drivers that vehicular traffic should stop behind a clearly marked crosswalk on the near side of the intersection. If there is no crosswalk, vehicles should stop behind a clearly marked stop line. If there is no stop line, vehicles should stop before entering the intersection and remain stopped until an indication to proceed is shown. Be sure to check your state's laws regarding where to stop at intersections. Now let's move on to stop signs. Every driver of a vehicle approaching a stop sign shall stop behind the crosswalk on the near side of the intersection. If there is no crosswalk, the vehicle must stop behind a clearly marked stop line. If there is no stop line, vehicles must stop at the point nearest the intersection where the driver has a view of approaching traffic on the intersecting roadway before entering it. The driver shall yield the right-of-way to any vehicle in the intersection or any vehicle approaching on another roadway so closely as to constitute an immediate hazard. All drivers shall yield the right-of-way to pedestrians within an adjacent crosswalk. Vehicle operation laws. Drivers to exercise due care. Every driver of a vehicle shall exercise due care to avoid colliding with any pedestrian or bicyclist. Every driver of a vehicle shall give an audible signal when necessary. Also, exercise proper precaution upon observing any child. And finally, exercise proper precaution upon observing any obviously confused, incapacitated, or otherwise impaired person. But we also have the use of the occupant protection system. Whenever a vehicle is equipped with the safety belt system, the person occupying the seating position shall keep the seatbelt properly adjusted and fastened around his or her body at all times while the vehicle is being operated. All children riding in the vehicle must be in the appropriate child safety restraint and in compliance with state child passenger safety laws. Now we have moving a vehicle from a parked position. So no person shall move a vehicle that is stopped, standing, or parked until such movement can be made with reasonable safety. Emerging from a driveway, parking area, alley, or building. So the driver of a vehicle emerging from a parking area or an alley or a building, private road, or driveway within a business or residential district shall stop the vehicle immediately prior to entering the sidewalk area across those alleys, building entrances, private roads, or driveways. In the event that there is no sidewalk area, the vehicle shall stop at the point nearest the street to be entered where the driver has a view of all approaching traffic. Vehicle entering the roadway. The driver of a vehicle that is about to enter or cross a roadway from any place other than another roadway shall yield the right-of-way to all vehicles approaching on the roadway to be entered or crossed. Vehicles approaching or entering the intersection. When two vehicles approach or enter an intersection from different roadways at approximately the same time, the vehicle on the left shall yield the right-of-way to the vehicle on the right. Then we have speed laws. The most important requirements for safe driving are time, visibility, and space. Speed limits are set to reflect traffic density, road conditions, sight distance, visual field, and type of vehicles. Limits are called fixed maximum or minimum posted speed laws. Drivers may not drive faster than the maximum posted speed. We also have minimum speed laws. Drivers may not drive slower than the minimum unless conditions make it dangerous to travel at the minimum speed. Examples would be ice or snow or standing water on the road. Now we have space and time near emergency vehicles. Many states have laws designed to help protect operators of emergency vehicles, including law enforcement vehicles, roadside service vehicles, fire trucks, and emergency medical vehicles. Now we have following too closely. Drivers should not follow another vehicle more closely than is reasonable and prudent, having due regard for the speed of such vehicles and the condition of the highway. If following too closely, drivers don't have enough time to respond to emergencies. If the driver in front of you stops suddenly, you will not have enough time to stop. Drivers who tailgate are unable to see a safe distance down the road. Then we have signals. The method of giving hand and arm signals. All signals given by hand and arm are to be given from the left side of the vehicle in the following manner. Such signals should be indicated as follows. Left turns, the hand and arm should be extended horizontally. For right turns, the hand and arm should be extended upward. And for stopping or decreasing your speed, your hand and arm should be extended downward. Turning movements and required signals. No person shall turn a vehicle or move right or left upon a roadway without giving an appropriate signal and until the movement can be made safely. A signal of intention to turn or move right or left, when required, shall be given continuously during not less than the last 100 feet traveled by the vehicle before turning. No person shall stop or suddenly decrease the speed of a vehicle without first giving an appropriate signal in the manner provided herein to the driver of any vehicle to the rear when there is opportunity to give such signal. Position and method. The driver of a vehicle intending to turn shall do as follows. For right turns, the approach for a right turn shall be made as close as practical to the right-hand edge of the roadway. For left turns, the driver of a vehicle intending to turn left shall approach the turn in the extreme left-hand lane. The driver of a vehicle intending to turn left shall yield the right-of-way to any vehicle approaching from the opposite direction so close as to constitute an immediate hazard. Then we have the two-way left turn lane, where a special lane for making left turns by drivers proceeding in opposite directions has been indicated by official traffic control devices. A left turn shall not be made from any other lane. A vehicle shall not be driven in the lane except when preparing for or making a U-turn when otherwise permitted by law. Stopping when traffic is obstructed. No driver shall enter an intersection, marked crosswalk, or drive onto any railroad grade unless there is sufficient space on the other side to accommodate your vehicle without obstructing the safe passage of other vehicles. Limitation on backing. The driver of a vehicle shall not back the vehicle unless such movement can be made safely and without interfering with other traffic. Opening and closing vehicle doors. No person shall open any door on a motor vehicle unless and until it is reasonably safe to do so. No person shall leave a door open on a side of a vehicle available to moving traffic for a period of time longer than necessary. We also have unattended motor vehicles. No person driving or in charge of a motor vehicle shall permit it to stand unattended without first securing the vehicle. Let's move on to aggressive and reckless driving laws. We'll start with reckless driving. Reckless driving involves an improper driving act such as speeding, the failure to yield a right-of-way, and turning from the wrong lane. Driving 20 to 25 miles per hour over the posted speed limit or speeding through a school zone when children are present may bring a charge of reckless driving. It is the conditions that prevail when the act is committed that make the act reckless rather than an ordinary violation of a traffic law. The three conditions to uphold the charge. Whether improper driving is considered reckless depends on the behavior of the driver and the conditions under which the behavior occurred. There are at least three conditions that generally must be shown to exist to uphold the charge of reckless driving. The first, the driver consciously and intentionally drives in a dangerous manner. The second, the driver knows or should know that the behavior places other persons at increased risk. And the third, the conditions make the increase in risk obvious and serious. Important factors include the time and place of occurrence, the weather, traffic volume, vehicle condition, and the driver's condition. Then we have willful and wanton. The key terms in a charge of reckless driving are willful and wanton. These terms imply a purpose or willingness to commit an act without regard for the rights or safety of others. Both words suggest that the person knows what he or she is doing and that his or her intent is to commit an act, even though there may be no intent or desire to do harm. Aggressive driving and road rage. A number of states have passed or are considering legislation to address these issues as criminal offenses. Most proposed legislation specifies that more than one dangerous act justifies a charge of aggressive driving and or road rage, such as speeding, tailgating in heavy traffic, cutting into and across lanes of traffic, and passing on the shoulder. All of these elements are necessary for a charge of reckless driving and are typically present in aggressive driving road rage offenses. Aggressive driving is generally defined as behaviors indicative of an aggressive mindset, but not necessarily directed to another specific driver, including speeding, running red lights, changing lanes suddenly or without signaling, and following too closely. By contrast, road rage is more often defined as behaviors directed at specific vehicles or occupants with malicious intent. These could include ramming, sideswiping, throwing objects, verbal attacks, battery, rude or obscene gestures, and the discharging of firearms. Then we have racing on public roads. Racing on public highways is extremely dangerous and places all road users at greatly increased risk. Never engage in any sort of race while on public roads. State laws address street racing very clearly. No person shall drive any vehicle in any race, speed competition or contest, drag race or acceleration contest, test of physical endurance, exhibition of speed or acceleration, or for the purpose of making a speed record. No person shall in any manner participate in any such race, competition, contest, test, or exhibition. Drag racing is defined as the operation of two or more vehicles from a point side by side at accelerating speeds in a competitive attempt to outdistance each other, or the operation of one or more vehicles over a common selected course from the same point to the same point for the purpose of comparing the relative speeds or power of acceleration of such vehicle or vehicles within a certain distance or time limit. Racing is defined as the use of one or more vehicles in an attempt to outgain, outdistance, or prevent another vehicle from passing to arrive at a given destination ahead of another vehicle or vehicles, or to test the physical stamina or endurance of drivers over long-distance driving routes. Vehicular homicide. Whoever shall unlawfully and unintentionally cause the death of another person while engaged in the violation of any state law or municipal ordinance applying to the operation or use of a vehicle or to the regulation of traffic shall be guilty of homicide when such violation is the proximate cause of death. Physical or mental condition. Drivers' physical and mental conditions can affect their ability to drive safely. Individuals who are unable to drive safely due to their mental states, the ingestion of drugs or physical conditions that render them incapable of properly controlling a motor vehicle, increase the chance of causing property damage, injury, or death. Driving while impaired by alcohol or other drugs. Alcohol contributes to more than 40% of traffic fatalities. Most people agree that no one under the influence of alcohol or other drugs should be allowed to drive a motor vehicle. Then we have blood alcohol concentration. So depending on the state, when a driver is stopped for cause and his or her blood alcohol concentration, known as the BAC, tests at or above 0.08%, that person can be charged with driving while intoxicated, known as a DWI, driving under the influence, DUI, or a similarly named charge. Courts generally accept tests of blood, breath, or urine to determine BAC level. Drivers under the age of 21. Many states have much stricter laws related to alcohol-impaired driving by drivers under the age of 21. So-called zero-tolerance laws feature maximum BAC limits ranging from 0.00 to 0.02%. Then we have commercial drivers. A driver who holds a commercial driver's license, known as a CDL, is considered DWI at a BAC of 0.04%. You might be asking yourself, why is their level lower? It's because those vehicles cause much more damage on the roadway. Implied consent and administrative license revocation. All states have implied consent laws. Under such laws, by driving on public roads, drivers agree to submit to a test for the presence of alcohol or other drugs if stopped for cause and charged with the offense of impaired driving. Drivers who refuse to take such a test may have their license immediately suspended for up to 90 days or longer. Under a procedure known as administrative license revocation, an arresting officer may be authorized to immediately take away the license of a driver who refuses to submit to a test or who tests above the BAC limit established by law. Drivers who refuse to submit to a breath or blood test may still be charged with DUI or DWI based on other evidence such as observed erratic driving and physical behavior. Then we have distracted driving. Due to the risks of being distracted while driving, many states have passed laws prohibiting certain behaviors. Some states forbid the use of cell phones while driving. Others ban onboard video screens that are visible to the driver. Some states ban the use of any mobile device by drivers under the age of 18. Some states ban text messaging while driving. Some states prohibit drivers from using headphones or earbuds, and drivers convicted of these offenses can be fined. Drowsy driving. Because driving drowsy can be as dangerous as driving while impaired by alcohol, some states are considering laws to punish offenders. New Jersey passed legislation recently allowing drivers who go more than 24 consecutive hours without sleep and are involved in a crash to be fined and/or jailed. Then we have littering. Litter is a major environmental issue, harming animals, people, and waterways, and costing millions of dollars each year to clean up. Unfortunately, a primary source of litter is motorists discarding garbage out of vehicle windows. The most common trash discarded by motorists is cigarette butts, which takes decades to degrade. Fast food containers are also commonly discarded. Penalties for littering can be stiff and could include fines, community service, and jail time. Instead of tossing trash out of your vehicle, place it in a vehicle litter bag and empty it at home or in a trash receptacle. Rather than throwing cigarette butts out of a car window, use a portable ashtray, a car ashtray, or a container with a secure top. Or consider participating in a community cleanup program to help keep roadways and your neighborhoods clean. This wraps up Chapter 6 for us, but as usual, we'll have our AAA videos to watch right now.